Hello, my name is Madeline and welcome back to my channel, Cozy Cottage Chapters, and welcome to all of the books that I read in the month of November. November was a bit of a strange reading month for me. I started off not on the best foot. I DNF'd 3 books in a row, which was super weird for me and very unsettling, especially kind of coming off of Victober and reading all of this great Victorian literature that I really loved and was really enjoying. I was picking up books and just not enjoying it, and so I was DNFing quite a lot, and that just kind of put me in a bit of a reading slump maybe. Anyways, I started off not great. If you want to hear more about the books that I DNF'd, I have a whole video about that, and I will leave that linked below, because I won't be really talking about them in this video. This is just about the books that I did read and finished. A couple of books to chat about and to talk about, so let's get into it. All right, the first book I have is a carryover from October, and that is Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. I have been loving this so much, and I'm so happy because with kind of all of the not so great reading that I had going on, I was so happy to have this as something every time I picked up, I knew I would enjoy, and I knew I would be captivated and just immediately sucked into the story, and that was amazing. So I'm about 800 pages, a little over 800 pages into this, which is great. I made really good progress in October, and like I said, I've been enjoying this so much. I was kind of dreading that there might have been a point in the middle of the book that kind of lost me, that I wasn't as interested in, that felt slower, but that's not the case. Every page, it seems like, moves the story along, and there's nothing that's just fluff in this book. Everything is so intentional and so purposeful, and I'm just enjoying this so much. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give anything away, because obviously, like, I'm kind of now into the later part of the story. But I just love seeing the development of Florence, and I really hope things work out for her, because she has not had an easy time, and I want things to work out for her so badly. So I'm hoping that the ending gives me what I want, and a happy ending for Florence. So I am eager to finish this up next month. And then the first book that I actually finished in November was The Funeral Ladies of Ellerie County by Claire Swinarsky. I was super excited to read this. I picked it up on Kindle because it was on sale. I think it was like $1.99 or something like that. And I've read one of her middle grade books before, and I really enjoyed it. So I was really hopeful and optimistic about her adult novel. And unfortunately, this one just wasn't for me. I have a lot of mixed feelings and kind of a hard time trying to put my thoughts into words, because there were elements of this book that I really enjoyed. I loved the Midwestern setting. I loved this kind of small town, tight-knit community. I loved that we had this kind of multi-generational female family storyline. But there were a number of things in this book that just weren't for me, and I just didn't really enjoy. First of all, being just the kind of content in the story. There was a lot of drinking, to the point of where it felt like every single character in the story was an alcoholic, and I didn't really see the point of that. Like, there was a character who was definitely an alcoholic, and that was kind of part of the storyline, was that, but then every other character was also just drinking so much, and every single scene, it seemed like, had to involve alcohol or characters talking about wanting to be drinking, and it just felt so strange for me. It took me out of the story. It felt not real. It didn't feel real, and maybe this is just me and my personal opinion, and I feel like kind of a prude saying this, but it felt so weird and just disconnecting. I didn't really connect, honestly, with any of the characters in this story, which was kind of a bummer. I liked the grandma. I'm blanking on her name. I want to say Edith, but I don't think it's Edith. I liked the grandma for a while, and then by like the middle, I was annoyed with her too. Everyone just there was no one that I really enjoyed. And I also was kind of annoyed because the title says The Funeral Ladies of Ellerie County. So you expect this book to be about the funeral ladies, this group of older women who are cooking food for the funerals that take place in their church, and kind of like caring for the community in this way. And I thought the story was going to be mostly about them, but it's not. It's basically a love story between these two younger members of these families. And that was just super misleading to me, and I honestly wish the story was more about the funeral ladies and not the love story, because I wasn't really interested. I didn't feel like they had a lot of chemistry, and yeah. So this one was kind of a bummer. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. I had high hopes for it, and there are a lot of elements that I think really would have worked for me, but ultimately it wasn't for me. Alright, so then I have a middle grade book. And this is Moominvalley in November by Jannson. I don't know if I'm saying that right at all. This is a Finnish classic, I guess you could say, children's kind of classic. It's part of the Moomin series. There are 6-ish books, I think, in the series, and obviously I had to read this one in November because it's Moominvalley in November and it's super autumnal. This is a very melancholic book, which I guess makes sense because November is kind of a melancholic month. You have the days getting shorter and rain, and you know, it's not the happiest of times. So that definitely comes through in this book. Beautiful descriptions of the nature. The writing in this book is just absolutely stunning and so atmospheric and cozy and lovely. But there's not a lot of plot, honestly. There's not a lot going on. We follow these kind of friends of the Moomins who all decide one day that they want to go visit the Moomin family. And so they make the trek and they go to their house, but the Moomins are gone and no one knows where the Moomins have gone. So they decide to just kind of settle in and wait for them to come back. And we follow kind of all of these different friends trying to get along together and live in this house while they're waiting for the Moomins to come back. And that's basically the whole storyline. There's not much else going on. It's a very quiet, cozy kind of book, which I really enjoyed all of those aspects of it. I just wish that the Moomins would have made an appearance in this book because I was so excited to read about the Moomins, and the Moomins were not here. Spoiler alert, they never come back. I don't know what happened to the Moomins. But yeah, this was kind of, I enjoyed it, but it was a little bit of a bummer that there weren't the Moomins. So I will have to like be more careful in the next book I pick up and make sure the Moomins are actually present in the story. It was really sweet and a fun fall story. Then I read the 8th book in the Maisie Dobbs series. This is A Lesson in Secrets. Like I've said before many times, I feel like a broken record. I adore Maisie Dobbs. I love these books so much. The characters are so lovely. It's so cozy. It just feels like sitting down with friends. These characters just feel so real to me, and I just enjoy these books so much. In this 8th book, it's much more mystery focused. The previous book I felt like was much more character focused. You got a lot of kind of development in Maisie's storyline, but this book is much more focused on a mystery. And we have Maisie, who is going undercover in a college in Oxford to help the police kind of see what's going on. They're a little suspicious about this college. And so she goes undercover as a teacher, and that was really fun. I loved the collegiate kind of setting, all of the academia drama kind of that was going on. I really enjoyed that. Also are getting closer and closer to the outbreak of World War II. Hitler has kind of risen to power now. It's getting ominous. We kind of see some hints at what is going to happen. So that is interesting too, to kind of see how the storyline is going to go as we get closer and closer to World War II. Like I said, I enjoy these stories, these mysteries so much. So this was kind of a perfect turning point in my reading month, thanks to Maisie Dobbs. I did manage to get one nonfiction book read for Nonfiction November, which is very exciting, and that is The Story of a Soul by Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. I talked about this in my fall TBR and wanting to read this. I had started it before and only got a little bit of the ways through, so I was very excited to actually be able to finish this. And as you can see with the tabs, I loved this. It was so amazing, so thought-provoking. Thérèse is just such an amazing woman and has so much wisdom. I really quite enjoyed this. I loved kind of getting all of the little sneak peeks into her childhood and her personal life growing up, her family, her parents, and the sweet, amazing family life that they had. Can't say enough good things about Thérèse. It was wonderful getting to spend some time with her and read this. Then I read Christie by Catherine Marshall. Really quite enjoyed this book. We follow Christie, who is 19 years old, and she decides to go to this town in rural Appalachia to be a school teacher. She leaves everything behind, her family, kind of her life of comfort, to go live this missionary life. This was an amazing story. She has this classroom of 62 children who she is trying her hardest. She cares so much about them, and she's just really trying to be there for these kids and to make a difference in them, in their lives, and just to love them and support them. That was so sweet to read about. I loved the sense of community in this book. You really get a glimpse into all of these different people and their lives and what it's like to live in this very remote, isolated, rural, tight-knit, in so many ways, community, but also kind of with the underlying tension of grudges and, you know, centuries of grudges, of people hating each other just because of the family that they're in, and how hard it is to live with that, and kind of how you can move forward and what that looks like. It was just a really powerful story. There's definitely some sad moments in this story, some really deep issues that are brought up, but I feel like it was done with so much care. It wasn't just talking about really deep, hard things for the sake of being gritty or the sake of being dramatic, there as a way to kind of show hope, and I thought it was so beautiful. I certainly did not agree with all of the theological ideas presented in this book, but I found there to be so much beauty and so many wonderful things. I really quite enjoyed it. And I was very surprised at the end when I went to put this on my Goodreads to see Catherine Marshall's biography, and to see that she attended the same, or graduated from the same college that I graduated from, which is super surprising because it's a very small women's college, and I was not expecting that at all. So I was super excited about that, and makes me definitely want to read more of her books in the future. It's very cool. Alright, and then the last book I read this month was At Odds with Love by Betty Neels. This is a romance book. A very short little romance book, just under 200 pages, I believe. And this was my first Betty Neels. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I'm definitely interested in reading more of her books in the future. It was so light and just fun, such a happy, joyful kind of book. So in this book, our main character is Jane, and she has been trained as a nurse, but she left her job to take care of her very sick grandmother, who is, you know, about to die. And when her grandmother passes away, Jane is kind of just left out in the dust because her cousin inherits everything from the grandmother, with the understanding that he's supposed to take care of Jane and provide her with some stability and be able to live in the house until she kind of figures out what she wants to do next. But the cousin is super mean and kicks her out, basically, and Jane has nowhere to turn. But luckily, this Dutch doctor who has been taking care of her grandmother shows up, and he helps Jane, figures out a plan where she can go. Obviously, romance ensues. Well, not quite romance, because while Jane definitely expresses her feelings towards this doctor, he takes a really long time to figure out whether or not he loves her. And that was super annoying and frustrating to read about, because I wanted this sweet romance and for it to be just, you know, super romantic, but it wasn't. He eventually proposes to her, but not because he loves her, because he just thinks it's like a sensible thing to do, because he's in his 40s, mid to late 40s, I think. She's younger, she's in her 20s. And he's like, I don't have a wife, I need a wife, because I'm like this, you know, high up doctor and I have events to go to and like social obligations. So I need a wife. I want someone to come home to and to like be able to talk to. And that's it. And she agrees because she loves him and she wants to like be with him, even if it's just in that capacity and not in a romantic way. But that was so frustrating to me because I loved Jane so much and I wanted her to have this beautiful, sweet, romantic storyline and this lovely marriage, and not this just kind of friendship but being married kind of situation. So that was kind of frustrating. Eventually they move back to the Netherlands because he's Dutch. I don't know if I mentioned that. He's Dutch. They move back to the Netherlands. They're married. And eventually things work out. Like there's a happy ending, but we don't get very much of that happy ending. Like the happy ending happens and the book is over, basically. He declares his true feelings to her and that's it, basically, which I was kind of hoping for like a little bit more in the happy time. But that's okay. This was a really sweet book. It's super short. It's just under 200 pages, I think. So it's a nice kind of quick, easy read that doesn't take much mental brain power, if that makes sense. So I enjoyed it, and I will definitely read more Betty Neels in the future. She has a ton of books, over 100, I think. So there's a lot. That's it for my November reads. Like I said, it wasn't a spectacular reading month. I didn't read a ton in terms of quantity, and I didn't read a ton in terms of quality. There were a couple of standout things, a couple of things I really enjoyed. Overall, it was kind of a strange reading month, and I'm hoping December will be a bit better and that I will just enjoy my reading a bit more than I did this month. Let me know down below if you read any great books this month or how your reading month was. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.